Could a doctor's needle or a toxic prescription drive Tinseltown's brightest royalty into absolute madness? If you love the beautiful rain-soaked nostalgia of classic cinema, leave a C in the comments and subscribe for more untold history. Today we shatter decades of tabloid lies to expose the devastating truths behind old Hollywood's darkest tragedies, from Howard Hughes's hidden prison to the heartbreaking curse that haunted the Barrymore dynasty. Rudolph Valentino, the cryptic end of Hollywood's golden chic. In the dazzling firmament of silent cinema, no star burned with a more hypnotic intensity than Rudolph Valentino. As the screen's ultimate Latin lover, his mesmerizing performances in masterpieces like The Sheik redefined romance, making millions swoon across the globe. He wasn't just a movie star, he was a cultural deity, wealthy, flawlessly handsome, and universally adored. Yet his celestial rise was cut short by a sudden, jarring tragedy. In August 1926, the silver screen icon collapsed in his New York hotel suite, gripped by agonizing abdominal pain. Surgeons rushed to repair a ruptured gastric ulcer and an acute appendix. However, in an era before penicillin could fight the resulting peritonitis, a brutal blood infection spread through his system. Within days, the great Valentino was gone at just 31. Devastated fans utterly refused to believe that a common medical emergency could claim their immortal idol. Consequently, the yellow press ignited a frenzy of sensationalism. Tabloids falsely screamed that a jealous paramour had poisoned him with one paper, even hosting a séance to summon his ghost. Whispers of secret shootings and illicit diseases ran rampant. None of it was true. Valentino's physicians flatly denied any foul play. His passing was simply a medical tragedy that modern surgery and antibiotics now routinely prevent. There was no shadow killer. The legendary Sheik was merely a mortal man undone by a sudden illness and immortalized by a scandal-hungry press. Al Capone, the tragic reality behind the mobster's madness. Here is a name you might not expect on a Hollywood roster, yet his inclusion is paramount. Al Capone was the most feared gangster in American history, ruling the Chicago underworld with an iron fist during the chaotic, bloody days of Prohibition. Though he never graced the silver screen, his real-life tragedy provides the crucial truth that exposes decades of Hollywood gossip. As a reckless youth, Capone contracted syphilis. Paralyzed by the heavy social stigma of the era, he chose to leave it untreated. For years, the silent destroyer lay dormant, slowly invading his central nervous system. By the time he was released from Alcatraz in 1939, neurosyphilis had completely ravaged his brain. The ruthless, calculating crime boss had vanished. In his place stood a confused, disoriented man. Medical experts confirmed his brain had entered the terminal stage of dementia. Capone spent his final years at his Florida estate living with the mental capacity of a gentle, broken child until his death in 1947. This devastating decay is the gruesome reality of untreated syphilis. So why include a mob boss here? Because his historical tragedy is exactly what modern tabloid lists plagiarize. Sensationalist writers shamelessly stole the horrific facts of Capone's actual medical demise and falsely attached them to innocent Hollywood icons who never suffered from the disease. Howard Hughes. The shattered mind of America's aviator icon Howard Hughes was the ultimate personification of the American dream. He was a visionary billionaire, a pioneering Hollywood producer, and a fearless aviator who shattered world flying records while courting the silver screen's most beautiful starlets. He seemingly held the world in his hands. Yet his final act evolved into one of the most haunting, reclusive tragedies in history. Hughes vanished into darkened, sterile hotel suites, letting his hair and nails grow grotesque, consumed by an agonizing terror of microscopic germs. He drafted obsessive, multi-page manuals for his staff on how to open a simple can of fruit. To the public, it looked like total madness. For decades, the tabloid press peddled a scandalous theory that syphilis had eaten away at his brilliant brain. However, modern medical history completely refutes this gossip. Following his death in 1976, exhaustive autopsies and psychological autopsies revealed a far more complex tragedy. Hughes suffered from severe, untreated obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. Furthermore, his brain had endured repeated massive trauma from multiple near-fatal plane crashes, which was severely compounded by a lifelong dependency on heavy narcotics prescribed to manage his chronic physical pain. His post-mortem examination showed absolutely no tertiary syphilitic damage. Hughes was not a victim of a shameful secret disease. He was a broken genius trapped inside a cage of mental illness, chronic trauma, and addiction. John Barrymore, the tragic eclipse of the Great Profile. He was universally hailed as the Great Profile. John Barrymore was arguably the most magnificent actor of his generation, a towering titan of both the Broadway stage and the Hollywood screen, whose legendary performance as Hamlet left audiences spellbound. As the patriarch of America's premier acting dynasty, he set the standard for dramatic brilliance. Yet his final years devolved into a slow, agonizingly public ruin. By the late 1930s, his brilliant memory had shattered. He could no longer remember his lines, forcing crews to hold cue cards just off camera. His classically handsome features grew bloated and haggard. As his cognitive faculties faded, Hollywood whispered that the great Barrymore was losing his mind to a shameful secret syphilis. The truth, however, was far more mundane and deeply tragic. Barrymore was a severe lifelong alcoholic, a dependency that began in his troubled youth. Decades of heavy drinking utterly ravaged his mind, his celebrated looks, and ultimately his physical frame. When he passed away in 1942 at age 60, his official cause of death was cirrhosis of the liver and kidney failure heavily compounded by severe pneumonia. There was no hidden venereal disease, so why does the scandalous rumor persist? Because syphilis genuinely struck the Barrymore dynasty, but the tragic victim was not John. Maurice Barrymore, the patient zero of Hollywood's darkest gossip. Maurice Barrymore was the dashing patriarch who birthed America's most celebrated acting dynasty. Long before his son John captured Hollywood's heart, Maurice was a captivating, witty stage star of the late 19th century. Yet beneath his charming veneer, Maurice harbored a terrifying secret: he had contracted syphilis in an era when medicine was powerless against it. Slowly and relentlessly, the disease migrated to his brain. The horrifying climax occurred in 1901 during a live performance. In full view of a stunned audience and with his young son John watching in utter heartbreak from the wings, Maurice suffered a catastrophic psychotic break. The family was forced to commit him to Bellevue and later the Amityville Asylum. He never crossed those gates again, passing away in 1905, completely detached from reality. This was the devastating origin point of the family curse. Because if Barrymore had truly been driven mad by neurosyphilis, the public and the press permanently linked the scandalous disease to that famous surname. Decades later, when his innocent son John began losing his memory due to severe alcoholism, the public assumed history was merely repeating itself. The tragic verdict on Maurice Barrymore is undeniable. His story is heartbreakingly true, a real-life horror that birthed a multi-generational myth. Jack Pickford, a deadly prescription in the Parisian dark. Jack Pickford lived in the colossal shadow of his older sister, Mary Pickford, the undisputed queen of early Hollywood. Blessed with movie star looks but cursed with a reckless streak, Jack indulged in a hedonistic lifestyle that eventually caught up with him. He contracted syphilis, a diagnosis that in the 1920s carried a draconian remedy. Doctors prescribed him a highly toxic topical solution formulated from mercury bichloride to treat his sores. The tragedy reached its horrific climax in September 1920. Jack and his beautiful young wife, silent screen darling Olive Thomas, were vacationing in Paris. Following a night of heavy drinking, a disoriented Olive stumbled around their darkened hotel suite at the Hotel Ritz, searching for sleeping medicine. In a catastrophic oversight, she grabbed Jack's poisonous mercury treatment instead and swallowed it. The caustic fluid ravaged her internal organs, and after days of agonizing medical battles, she passed away at just 25. Olive became one of Hollywood's most tragic collateral casualties, killed by the treatment of a disease she never actually had. The ensuing scandal nearly destroyed the Pickford dynasty. Jack himself never truly recovered from the guilt and physical toll, surviving another decade before dying in Paris in 1933 at age 36. His body entirely spent from substance abuse and chronic illness. The verdict on Jack Pickford is undeniable. This devastating tale is historically true. Wallace Reed, the heartbreaking tragedy of Hollywood's morphine nightmare. In the early days of cinema, Wallace Reed was universally hailed as the screen's most perfect lover. He was the quintessential American leading man, handsome, athletic, and deeply adored by millions. His golden future seemed absolutely limitless until a catastrophic train accident occurred while traveling to a movie set. To keep their valuable star working through agonizing physical pain, the studio doctors continuously injected him with morphine. The pain vanished, but a ferocious, unbreakable addiction took hold. The once vibrant screen hero slowly withered into a prisoner of severe chemical dependency. By January 1923, the relentless battle ended when Reed passed away in a sanitarium at just 31 years old. In an era shrouded in secrecy, his courageous widow, Dorothy Davenport, broke Hollywood code by publicly revealing the truth about his narcotic addiction to warn the nation. Despite this well-documented medical history, Reed's name was later dragged into modern tabloid lists, falsely claiming he died of advanced syphilis. That salacious rumor is entirely manufactured. Wallace Reed was utterly destroyed by a doctor's needle and a studio's greed, not a venereal disease. The final verdict on Wallace Reed is clear. This scandalous rumor is completely false. Mabel Normand, the sovereign of silent comedy chased by shadows. Mabel Normand was the undisputed queen of early screen comedy, an incandescent talent who regularly co-starred with Charlie Chaplin and stood as one of Hollywood's pioneering female directors. She possessed a rare, brilliant wit that defined the silent era. However, her glittering career was violently derailed by sensationalized scandals, most notably when she became the last person to see director William Desmond Taylor alive before his infamous unsolved 1922 murder. As the predatory press closed in cruel whispers began to poison her reputation. The public eagerly consumed rumors that she was a hopeless drug addict or that she was hiding a shameful venereal affliction. Yet the stark, heartbreaking reality was that Mabel was slowly losing her life to pulmonary tuberculosis, a rampant and lethal respiratory plague of the era. She fought the illness valiantly, but ultimately passed away at a sanitarium in February 1930 at just 37 years old. Despite explicit medical records documenting her respiratory demise, modern tabloid lists carelessly drag her name into historical tallies of stars supposedly ruined by syphilis. That salacious allegation remains a total fabrication. Mabel Normand was a tragic victim of a devastating lung disease and a ruthless media feeding frenzy. The verdict on Mabel Normand is absolute. The syphilis claim is a malicious lie. Thank you for watching today's video. If you find the content interesting or useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue creating better quality content every day. What do you think about today's topic? Leave a comment below so we can discuss it together. See you in the next video. Have a great day.